Alright guys, MTech Guy here, and today we're going to take a look at the E60 M5 for a change. And why not, eh? It's a glorious car, but it's not all glorious, and that's what we need to have a talk about today. Let's go and take a look. Okay, so if we take a look at the front of the car here, look at this, look at the state of this. It's a massive front arch gap. What do you guys reckon to it, eh? I reckon the fella that was looking after the design of the front wings, the front fenders for BMW in the 2000s has just been recently promoted to looking after grills. Look at the size of that. They must have been having a laugh. It's like 3 fingers. It's massive. Now traditionally, BMWs do normally have a more closed in rear arch than the front, but for some reason it just seems disproportionate on this car. It almost looks goofy. I'm not sure what it is, but I don't know, it just doesn't look right, eh? So it's certainly one of the things that I sort of dislike about these cars. Now I know there's a common mod on these cars that some of you guys like to do, and that's fitting the lowering springs at the front of the car to close that arch gap in and even it up with the rear. H&R springs are a popular mod, but it's not something I'm a big fan of myself. In recent years I've always liked to keep my cars factory stock. I love the factory suspension setup in this car, it handles awesome. Now if you do decide to go down the road of modifying the suspension on one of these cars, especially if you're just looking to fit lowering springs at the front, what you're going to do is change the whole dynamics of the chassis. So essentially the bottom of the car sits parallel to the ground at the moment. Now if you stick lowering springs just in the front, it's going to close that gap up there, it's going to sit closer to the ground at the front, it's going to give it a more raked style. But at the same time it's going to affect the dynamics of the suspension setup. Now these cars have a really dialed in suspension setup, they handle so well, and of course you've got the EDC adjustment as well, so you can change the firmness of your shocks, how well it corners, this type of thing, you know. And make no mistake, there are some advantages to be gained by lowering the suspension, but you are going to take away from other areas of the dynamics. And one of the things I really love about these cars, the E60 M5s, is that whole wolf in sheep's clothing thing it's got going on, you know. So whenever I see a really heavily modified one, you know, it might have the slam suspension, a more accentuated body kit, a bigger rear wing, you know, it might look cool, but it takes away from that whole wolf in sheep's clothing thing. You know, you've got this big 4-door sedan saloon, and it's got that screaming V10 engine in there, and that's all part of the magic of these cars, you know, so I don't want to take away from that myself with my own car. So them goofy looking arch gaps just add to the effect. Now something else that I really like about the front suspension sitting where it does, it gives you heaps of ground clearance from that front bumper to the ground. So that's great if you're ever in a situation where you need to go and stick the car in a parking lot, or you spend a lot of time in the city dealing with speed bumps, or you've got a sloping driveway, a bit like myself. Then it just gives you that bit of extra clearance in comparison to my old E46, the 330ci I had, the coupe. That was always catching the front bumper every once in a while, and it was a real cringed moment every time, but it's not happened with the E60 M5. So that's certainly one positive about the front end sitting where it does, if nothing else. Now then, if you're looking at the front end of your E60 M5 and you're wondering whether this arch gap is correct, whether it's looking too massive, or maybe yours is closed in a bit more on a factory suspension, there is a check you can carry out with the factory measurements as a reference. Now you'll take a measurement from the bottom of the rim here at 6 o'clock, and you'll take it right up to the bottom of the wheel arch there, right on the edge of the lip. And the measurements we're looking for, so the minimum acceptable is 24.8 inches, maximum 25.59, and then it should be somewhere in the middle. It should be sitting around 25.2, but anywhere in the range from that minimum to maximum, and you'll be fine. Now you'll probably find if your car's still got the original shocks on from the factory and they haven't been changed out, it'll be sitting closer to that minimum measurement, because of course they do wear over time and they do sag down a tiny bit, so it'll be sitting closer to the minimum. Now my car has just recently had new shocks, so mine's sitting right up, what was the maximum, 25.59, mine was 25.5, so it's right up there, but of course got them brand new shocks on there, so it's no wonder. So my car's certainly going for the full-on arch gap experience there. Alright guys, so there we have it. That's the front arch gaps on the E60 M5. Not a subject everybody talks about, but certainly one that needed addressing. Let me know what you guys reckon to the arch gap setup on these cars. Love it or hate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm MTech Guy. Thanks a lot for watching.